Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone podcast, episode number 826 for the 4th of August. The 4th of August, 2024. Richard Saunders coming to you from the Skeptic Zone studios, complete with 2 cats outside the door, here in Sydney, Australia. Coming up on this week's show, it's the Loons from Canada. Kate and Allie return, and they're going to be talking about the phenomena of access consciousness and access bars. I've accessed quite a few bars in my time. I don't think this is what Kate and Allie will be talking about. What is access consciousness and its 10 keys to freedom? Sounds interesting. Find out more at the top of the show with those loons from Canada, Kate and Allie. Then we head to Sydney Skeptics in the pub with Maynard. Maynard runs around the pub asking pub-goers if they have a superstition. And this is sort of to do with the Olympic Games on at the moment, because we note that many athletes have superstitions, superstitious beliefs about lucky paraphernalia or doing something 3 times or what have you, which ties into the Trove segment later on in the show, which also deals about sports and superstitions. Also in this week's episode, we have Adrienne Hill, one of the loons herself, to read the Australian Skeptics Newsletter written by Tim Mendham. A big shout out to my friend Andras Pinter from the European Skeptics podcast, The Real ESP Experience. And Andras has been doing some work on his iPad lately in connection with the podcast, his podcast, or the podcast he's involved with, and I was able to offer him a little bit of advice. Because I think I've probably mentioned this before, the Skeptic Zone podcast is, maybe 90% done on an iPad. I have recording equipment I use, nice microphones set up here going into a nice 32-bit float recorder, but all the editing, mixing the music and the podcast itself is edited on the iPad. I wonder if you prefer an iPad or maybe a laptop when you're doing your work. I find it interesting to hook up a mouse, for example, to the iPad, which is of mixed use, I think. The Apple Pencil I find very good, and a keyboard when I'm on the run. And no, this show is not sponsored by Apple. Anyway, this episode will run slightly over time, so I better run downstairs, have a nice cup of early morning coffee, which is different to a late afternoon coffee, I guess. Maybe see what has been happening in the Olympic Games overnight while I do that. I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone. It's the Loons from Canada. Here's Kate and Allie.
Hello everyone, this is Adrienne Hill from Skookum Studios, and I have my good friend from Edmonton,
Kat McLeod.
Kate and Allie are back once again. And I have to let you know that Kat is unaware of what we are talking about today. So it's a bit of a surprise. And a couple of weeks ago, I was in a Guerrilla Skepticism on Wikipedia meeting with Susan Gerbic and Pavel Schmeichel. And he lives just outside of Prague in Czechia. And Pavel told us something really interesting about his sister, who was practicing something with athletes, something that neither Susan nor I had ever heard of before. Now, it is called access bars, and it's part of access consciousness. Have you ever heard of access consciousness, Kat?
I heard about that just last week.
Interesting. And where did you hear about it from?
Online, Adrienne. I don't have a life.
So you might actually have an idea of what we're going to expose you to. We'll see how much you know. Pavel's sister is a certified therapist, and she states on her website, quote, I am a doll maker who likes to awaken in others a desire and courage to create. I am an author and creator of original physio dolls for therapists' work. I am a certified Tamara Polanski psychodynamic coach. I will stir things up in your head. Healthy. I am a certified access bars practitioner. I'll clear your head. End quote. Thanks, Pavel. And I think just in that statement alone, there are several episodes of interesting things.
Oh, most definitely.
Since Pavel noted how athletes are using this, I was kind of wondering if we're going to see this modality used by any Olympians this year. You know, such as the cupping and kinesiotape we've seen in the past. So we'll have to keep an eye out for that.
We will. It might be a little difficult to spot, though, based on my very limited knowledge of it.
So the information that follows that we will both talk about is mostly from articles that are written by Jonathan Jerry, David Gorski, and Harriet Hall. There are some others, but unfortunately, they are behind a paywall for most people, and they are from the Australian newspaper. So check out the show notes for the links to those articles. They're very interesting, to say the least. So let's start with access consciousness. We'll get to the access bars a little later. What was your understanding about what access consciousness was, Kat?
From the very limited knowledge I have of it, it has to do, it's almost like phrenology, but instead of talking about the type of person you are, it's manipulating certain parts of your scalp, basically, to improve different aspects of your life. Like if you touch this little area, it's not even a lobe because you're not actually touching your brain. You're touching your scalp on top of your skull, on top of your brain. Then, you can bring riches to yourself. Or, you can unlock this and become more successful. And I'm sorry, I give myself a nice little scalp massage all the time. And it's not gotten me much.
Well, you get relaxation out of it. I think it's quite nice having a scalp massage. So yeah, as you said, it's essentially a new version of phrenology. And phrenology being you assign meaning to the bumps on your head. And this is a variation on that theme. Not only is this a version of phrenology, it also adds in energy medicine, of course.
Of course.
As you alluded to, people who receive the services of access consciousness, they can help the world in many ways, including world peace. And they state that war and famine can go away. And this is the one that's really kind of a personal one right now. They say that rain can be brought to a forest fire.
Really?
And I'm saying, where have they been the last week in Alberta? Our whole province is on fire. The small town of Jasper, which is one of our biggest tourist attractions.
And one of my favorite places on the planet.
Yes, it's so beautiful there. It's quaint. It's got so much history. And they were evacuated last week. And just a side note, we are recording this on July 25th. And yesterday it started burning, and we didn't know until just a few minutes ago that half the town is burned. We didn't lose the whole thing, thank goodness.
Yet,
yeah. But it is raining.
It is raining.
And I am not attributing it to these people because they should have been on it last week. They had a week's notice to get the rain. So where were they?
Right?
And our thoughts are with long-time listener Brenda Hill and others who have been evacuated.
Yeah, she's in Edmonton right now, and we are thinking of her. We're thinking of everyone in Jasper, everyone who's ever had memories of Jasper. My heart's just broken right now.
Yes.
So
we're thinking of you, wherever you are. Now let's get back to some of the key concepts of access consciousness. They call it a therapeutic framework that offers many tools that will change your life. And I'm going to start with what they call the 10 keys to freedom that I found on accessconsciousnessblog.com. And so, Kat, I'm going to ask for your response after each one of these. Remember, this is the 10 keys to freedom.
Okay.
Number 1. Would an infinite being really choose this?
No.
How is that a framework or a key to freedom? It's a question.
It's a question, and it assumes there are things of infinite beings. What? Right out the gate, I'm lost.
Number 2, everything is just an interesting point of view.
No, I don't agree with that at all.
And it's, again, very broad. And what does it mean?
Mass genocides and famines are just an interesting point of view? No.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Here's one of my favorites. Not the favorite, but one of my favorites. Live in 10-second increments.
Okay.
That would be a lot of concentrating.
Right? I mean, I've heard of living in the moment.
Yes, that's in less than a moment.
Yeah, that's like one breath takes me longer than 10 seconds.
Yeah. Live as the question, not as the answer.
What?
Yeah. No form, no structure, no significance.
Is that like don't wear any structural undergarments because it's too constricting?
I don't know. No form, no structure, no significance. I mean, I would almost take that to mean you need structure in your life. Well, that's common sense. I think we all need a little bit of structure, some of us more than others. But no significance? Interesting.
Like a life can't have significance if it's unstructured?
Yeah. I have many unstructured moments in my life.
Right? Like, wow, I can't buy into any of this so far. Keep going.
No judgment, no discrimination, no discernment.
Okay.
No judgment, no discrimination. Great.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what no discernment means.
Right? It was like, I'm following. Yeah, lost me again. Clearly, I need a head massage.
Probably my favorite one, and you'll see why later when I talk more to this point. No drugs of any kind. And what do they mean by drugs, right?
I mean, caffeine is a drug.
Exactly. And here's one that is a little bit concerning to me. Do not listen to, tell, or buy the story. Unless it's theirs.
I really like Dr. Seuss. Those are stories.
And did you buy it?
I bought the book.
And the last one listed here, no exclusion.
Of any kind?
Don't know.
Of people?
Don't know.
Initially, you think, yeah, you want to be very inclusive.
Correct.
However, I don't want toxic people in my life.
Correct.
That serial killer, you can be excluded from society. Thank you ever so kindly. What?
I'm thinking that this did not provide a lot of clarity as to what access consciousness really is about. And how do these 10 things, how are they the keys to freedom?
Right.
Well, all you have to do to find out is, guess what you have to do?
I'm going to guess you got to put your hand in your wallet and you got to fork over a bunch of money. Am I close?
Did you ever get that one right?
Yes.
All you have to do is pay for courses.
Oh, wow. It's kind of like Scientology.
You're getting ahead of the game, Kat.
Oh, no.
So we are going to come back to the courses and the costs and Scientology, just to give everybody a heads up.
Xenu, take note.
I think of all those ones, and I mentioned it while I was reading. The one that caught my interest the most was the no drugs of any kind. Mm-hmm. And apparently the drugs referred to include prescription drugs. So not the ones we were talking about like caffeine or whatever, but prescription drugs for, can you take any guess which prescription medications they specifically list?
Oh, I'm going to guess that they're probably okay with things like statins and insulin, but anything to do with the brain, they're going to probably go, nuh-uh.
Yes. That's exactly right. They actually state that prescription drugs for ADHD, they say that Ritalin is more hallucinogenic by weight as LSD, which is probably true. However, I don't think any doctor is going to prescribe that level of Ritalin to kids or patients. So they describe antidepressants and anti-anxiety meds as mind-altering. And I kind of think, well, isn't that a good thing?
That's kind of the point.
That's the point. You want to help people not be anxious. We want them to not be depressed.
You want to increase the serotonin in, dopamine, and because your body's not doing it properly.
And they brag about a woman who stopped taking her anti-anxiety and ADD drug after her involvement with Access Consciousness. And I really worry about how this woman is now faring.
And did she consult her doctors before stopping those medications, or did she just throw them out the window?
Whatever you do, never stop taking your medications without consulting a doctor, because you can have some pretty serious outcomes from suddenly stopping any medication that you've been on a regular basis. And they do, of course, go further with their concerns over drugs.
Of course they do.
I'm guessing you won't guess this one, Kat, though you've been doing amazingly well. So this one is, if you have a glass or two of champagne, you're probably fine. But heavy alcohol use or use of drugs will allow entities to take control of your body.
Woohoo!
And apparently, if you're under anesthesia when you're in surgery, the ghosts are invited to enter your body. But apparently, because it doesn't occur a lot, it's okay. They leave. So you don't have to worry about it.
When do they leave? In the OR? In the recovery room? 6 days after, and now they're in your attic?
But wait, there's more. If you sign up for courses, you will learn about more than 7,000 tools that are available, and there's more being created constantly.
How will I ever learn all that? Never mind, how will I ever pay for all that?
And apparently, as of 2021, there were 170 countries in the world that offered Access Consciousness services.
Wow.
Yeah, this is not a small thing, and I'd never heard of it until Pavel talked about it.
And I hadn't heard of it until the other day, but it is very widespread.
And it is not cheap to get the services. So according to The Australian, in an article called Access Consciousness, Scam or Spirituality, written by Cindy Lever and Jessica Clement, they list the variety of costs in Australia and Europe. For example, you can watch a, quote, stress relief introductory workshop video class, end quote, and that will only cost you 35 Australian dollars. There is an, quote, Access Bar's gifting and receiving session, end quote, that is offered in Sydney's Neutral Bay at a yoga studio that starts at the bargain price of 15 Australian dollars. But it goes up. That's just the starting price.
Well, because that's like your gift starter pack, right? To get you
That's right.
hooked in.
So then in Murrelbark, Victoria, for just $100, you can attend a session called, quote, An Introduction to Right Body for You, end quote. And if you want more, you can attend a 2-day, quote, Talk to the Entities, end quote. There's the entities again. And as a beginner's course, you can attend this for the bargain price of $2,150.
Whoa.
And it takes place in Doonan on the Sunshine Coast.
So, sorry, right body? That implies that the one I have is the wrong body?
Yeah, I don't like the implications of the titles at all. They're very judgmental for something that is supposed to be not judgmental.
And no exclusions?
Yeah.
Hard to wrap my brain around this one. So it costs all this money to attend everything from like $15 up to $2,000, right?
Yes.
So how much does it cost to become a practitioner?
Well, in May this year, there were 600 people that paid 3,000 euros per ticket in Prague, which is where Pavel is, and they attended a 3.5-day training called Global Foundation Course.
And so after those 3.5 days, you're certified?
Well, it can be less than that. It can be a day and you are certified. So this is one of the more advanced training.
Okay.
In Queen Park in Perth, a woman offered a 3-day training course advertised at 2,500 Australian dollars. And a 5-day training in Noosa cost participants 7,500 Australian dollars. Now here's the kicker. To renew your practitioner's license, it would have cost Margaret Bronick, who has been doing this for 20 years, 17,000 Australian dollars.
Whoa.
She decided, obviously, enough was enough and left the organization. You'd have to be pulling in an awful lot of money to be able to make a living, to be able to keep paying these fees.
So it's not like you're a practitioner and away you go. You have to buy in every year and probably even take more courses year after year.
Of course. In fact, another practitioner, Carrie Purcell, she stated she would spend 60,000 Australian dollars per year traveling and taking classes.
That's
a salary.
That's more than my salary, I'll tell you that for nothing. Wow, that is shocking.
I think we've given the listeners a taste of what access consciousness is, but this is truly just the beginning. Are you willing to come back and discuss this with me again for part 2, Kat?
No. Of course I will, Adrienne. It's weird and creepy, and you know that's my wheelhouse, so absolutely.
Oh, I look forward to it. And with that, until next time, this is Adrienne Hill and
Kat McLeod,
the Loons from Canada.
This is Susan Gerbic from Psychics Explained. That's the YouTube channel where we discuss and analyze in great depth all those people who say that they can speak to the dead, all those readings, how they look like they're actually communicating with people. Why do people fall for this? There's a reason. It's much more complicated than you would think. Come to my channel, watch our videos. We would love to have you become part of our conversation. Just visit us on YouTube at Psychics Explained or Psychic Sex Planed on YouTube.
Here's Maynard's spooky action at a distance.
Now, of course, the question we're going to be asking people tonight, if anyone will answer the question, because I do have a hell of a time getting people to answer the question here at Skeptics in the Pub, because everyone goes, what? Huh? Oh, no, I couldn't. Those are the answers I get. Huh? What? No, I couldn't. And I'm going to be asking them, do they know of any sports superstitions, like people like having lucky shoes, lucky pants, lucky hats, lucky undies?
Maybe they have a superstition.
Maybe they know of a superstition, a sports superstition.
Do you have a superstition, Maynard?
No, I believe in good and bad luck, but nothing to the point of superstition. I do like the number 4 for some reason because of its balance, but that's about it, really. That's numerology, really, isn't it? So, right. Well, I got in trouble on X for mentioning to a very prominent Australian astrologer that talking about Mercury in retrograde, I believe it was, which is why bad things happen to objects like computers or whatever. And she said that, look, there's a shadow of Mercury. So as well as Mercury in retrograde, you've got the area either side of it where there's a shadow of Mercury in retrograde. And I said, well, aren't you making it even more vague? Because you've actually widened the area where the days where this can happen. And also there's nothing really unnatural about things not working as they should. And she told me a one-word reply, and that word was actually poppycock.
Shadow of Mercury. It sounds like an Agatha Christie novel.
Well, it does indeed, but I imagine if something's going retrograde, there would be a shadow, but since the planets don't actually go backwards anyway, the whole thing's a bit odd.
A bit odd.
Yes.
All right.
But poppycock, not a bad word. Actually got someone. Okay, well, I'm talking to people here tonight about sports superstitions and possible bent spoon entries. But what have you been thinking about with our topic this evening?
I think, embarrassingly, one is my own, right? So whenever I compete in sport, I used to ride motorbikes for a racetrack. I'd always put my right glove on before my left. And if I didn't do that, I wouldn't want to go out.
And was that based on any experience? Did you once put your left one on first and fall off?
No, it just developed over time, and I'm not sure why.
And did you ever do that and come off anyway?
No, it's purely no reason for it. But if I remembered putting my left on first, I'd stop and take them both off and put them back on again. So yeah, no reason for it. No.
Yeah, a lot of people have little habits like that they like doing. And in sports, I'm just wondering if they got into it from them winning once and they remembered they did something and they wanted to do it over and again, or whether it's like an OCD kind of thing.
It could be OCD, or it could be like like a pre-checklist that you create that sort of just puts your mind at ease before you take part in sport.
Yeah, or it could be just a way of giving yourself a bit of confidence, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, you've done all your, steps up front, but I don't think it's going to make any difference. It's just a mental preparation.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think you're right. And you see the cupping in the Olympics, those swimmers that have had some cupping done.
Yes, you're seeing it on all of them. Yeah. But I think most sports people seem to I'm making an assumption, but it's very much everyone has their, I guess, things that make them feel comfortable. Some of it might be because they believe it's going to work. Others, maybe in my case, it just becomes a habit and makes you feel comfortable.
That's right. I guess everyone's looking for a kind of edge, and if you think it's giving you an edge, that often might be enough.
Yeah, maybe. In my case, it's not an edge. It's just.
Oh, right. And tell me, how well did you go in the motorbiking sport?
It was okay. It was mostly for fun, so it wasn't like I was too competitive. But I know. Riding with other riders that took it very seriously, they all seem to have had their own things that they would do.
But look, we're here to tell you, if you're riding a motorbike tonight, it's okay to put the left glove on first. Okay, yep.
Thank you. Yeah, okay. I'll try next time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello. Hi. Has anyone got a superstition they might? Yes?
Spit in the eye.
Oh,
okay. Well, this is one I really want to know what sport this is about. Okay, what superstition would you like to enlighten us about?
When somebody says something that's could end up being bad luck, then I say, I go, spit in the eye.
Wow.
And I don't even have any Greek background.
Yeah, I was going to say, where's that? Yeah, is it English, Greek, Polish?
It's Greek, I think.
Oh, okay.
The evil eye. You spit in the evil eye so that it won't come and damage the good luck, the good fortune.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
And of course, if people aren't aware of that and you say it, they get very confused, no doubt.
My daughters get very annoyed with me that I'm being superstitious. Yeah.
Good. Thank you very much. Thank you. That's good. Thank you. Okay, that's true. Okay, well, look, we've got another. Okay, now what's it's a superstition or a belief, but what do you want to add to our pile tonight?
Of what?
Of superstitions.
To do with the Olympics or not? No, that's my superstition.
Yes.
The good die young.
Okay, and what age? 27? Because that is young, and that is one of the superstitions.
Too young, younger than they should.
Yeah, so the superstition would be, by correlation, that if you do too many good deeds, your life is short. It may be sweet, and if you're mean and evil, you seem to live forever. But some people believe that. They have this connection.
And if you don't live forever, maybe if you're evil, it just seems like that to everyone else. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Well, we're talking superstitions, we're talking sports superstitions, and we're talking bent spoon. Have you had a bit of thought about any other potential bent spoon entries for this year at all? It's all right.
Or maybe, not the bent spoon, I'm afraid. I've been very busy, so I haven't been exposed to much pseudo-scientific and paranormal piffle, thankfully. But I have been thinking about some sports superstitions, particularly with the Olympics going on, and you do see a fair bit of cupping, don't you?
Yeah, we've mentioned that a few times, and I'm just wondering if the more cupping you do, it's better for your swimming, or whether just doing one or two is enough, because I haven't seen how many marks they got on their back.
I've seen quite a few, so maybe it must be the more you do, the better it is, because it's drawing out those dreadful toxins, isn't it?
That fits into a lot of other pseudoscience as well, but I'm not quite sure how it fits in if they're using some sort of Chinese medicine or something that's acupuncture-based that might interfere with other things that they might be taking for their swimming.
Well, that's right. Other illegal supplements. You don't want to interfere with all the illegal supplements, do you?
Exactly. Yes. There might be reactions that you don't know about. But yes, and that's probably the cupping is that the most obvious one so far in the Olympics?
Well, to me, in the Olympics, but we mustn't forget, in terms of sports superstitions, one of the favourites of our former editor and executive officer, Barry Williams, was his cricket superstition, or not his superstition, but he was a cricket fanatic. And there's the old superstition in cricket that you get more people bowled out when they've made 87 runs because it's 13 away from 100.
Really? Wow. You think they'd be too busy to do the maths and note that?
You would, wouldn't you? But that's the superstition. But I think Barry, in one of his articles, which you can search on the website, comprehensively disproved it.
Hello everyone, this is Adrienne Hill from Skookum Studios in Calgary, Canada. Yes, you heard that right, not Iceland. Apparently, I'm not very good at reading a calendar, and I announced during the last newsletter that I would be in Iceland for reading this newsletter. But alas, I am still here in Canada to read you the highlights from the Australian Skeptics Newsletter. This is newsletter number 202. Ooh, 202. Now there's a nice palindromic number. And remember, you can subscribe to this newsletter and receive it every other week in your inbox. The full newsletter includes more stories and links to all the stories that I'm going to mention. But now, let's see what Tim Mendham has for us this time. Hi all, says Tim. As the quadrennial Global Sports Fest, that is the Olympics, gets underway, there will no doubt be a lot of pseudoscience quackery promoted to assist aspiring and perspiring medal winners. Keep your eyes out for swimmers looking like they've been attacked by an octopus. And there will be more about sport and superstition in the Trove segment later in the show. I'll look forward to that. At the same time, apparently, Olympic demand for unproven ice therapy is unsustainable, scientist says. The amount of energy and water needed to produce, store, and transport the 650 tons of ice required for ice baths at the Olympics and Paralympics is not good for the planet, to say nothing of its cost, they add. Meanwhile, whether you're in a warm or a cold place, read on. Tim. Okay, Tim, I will do just that. Dick Smith versus Dick Smith. Understandably, Dick Smith, the noted Australian entrepreneur and founder and patron of Australian Skeptics, is less than pleased that the Dick Smith electronics retail chain that he sold in the 1980s, but still bears his name, now online only, is selling a range of anti-vaccine books. Smith, who has been a pro-vaccine campaigner for decades, said he found it horrifying. And I don't blame him. Skepticon 2024, Sydney, November 23rd through 24th. Tickets will be available soon for the convention in Sydney, with a speaker list growing by the day, including Ben Radford, Carl Kruszelnicki, Alanta Colley, Josh Zepps, Richard Saunders, and many more. Skepticon 2024 will run from November 23rd through 24th at the Guthrie Theatre, University of Technology, Sydney, with an opening function at the Occidental Hotel in York Street, Wynyard, on the evening of November 22nd, the Friday preceding the convention. Tickets for the convention and the program of speakers will be available soon. Psychic's $4 million scam. There are scammers in every industry, along with victims who fall for their patter, so we don't normally cover psychic ripoffs. But this case is more extreme than most in the psychic world and involves Romanies, fake mobsters, demons, extortion, embezzlement, sex work, and a family of crooks. The prosecutors said the psychic was, quote, not nice to other people, end quote. Trump shares vaccine skepticism with RFK Jr. Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s son, Bobby Kennedy III, posted a video of a phone call between his conspiracy theorist father and U.S. presidential candidate and Donald Trump, in which the former president appeared to endorse false theories with the safety of vaccines. The video has now been deleted, except nothing ever disappears on the net. Australia's UFO capital abandoned. The famous UFO capital of Australia, the Roadhouse at Wycliffe Well, has been abandoned. Probably spookier now, though, than it ever was. Skeptics Special Investigation: The Hunt for the Drop Bear. Produced at great expense, specifically for the Global Skeptics in the Pub event held on July 19th, which was a blast, by the way. This classic of nouvelle vagueness will no doubt be included in all good cinematic must-see lists, and I recommend it. It was great fun. There will be a report on this epic production, the global event, not so much the drop bears, in the next issue of The Skeptic magazine. Link to the video in this week's show notes, and do check it out. It is great fun. The cast and the acting was impeccable. Items of interest. Real estate opportunities. Psychic James Von Prague's Southern California home is going for a mere $4.7 million US. And it was apparently co-designed by his spirit guides, who obviously have a rather overbearing taste for sky blue furnishings. And as an aside, he also has held a few seances at the Winchester Mystery House. Durham's supposedly most haunted pub, the Shakespeare, is looking for a new landlord. The lease on the 12th century building will set you back £150,000. And apparently the resident ghosts have a penchant for following customers to the toilets and whispering in their ears, which is guaranteed to put you off your beer. That's for sure. Oh dear. West Virginia Monster has its own musical. Forget My Fair Lockie or Bye Bye Bigfoot. They don't hold a candle to the Bat Boy musical. Even though the boy was made up by some journalist, someone is pitching the performance rights in case your local repertory company has a few spare evenings. Alien prediction confirmed by new discovery. Athos Salome from Brazil, he of the square-cut jaw and prominent cheeks, and known as the living Nostradamus, of course, says that his prediction of discovering alien life forms from 2026 to 2028 is being backed up by remarkable new scientific discoveries. The aliens will be found within the depths of Jupiter's moon, Europa's sea. But don't hold your breath. Silliest story of the week. And it involves asparagus, of course. Because apparently, asparagus is predicting that Michelle Obama will be a U.S. president. The psychic and her veggie props should be steamed, simmered, or blanched, according to taste. Other silliest story of the week. Does this viral photo show a baby Bigfoot? No. Ignore the silly man in a suit photos and concentrate on the kid in a small suit photo. The really silliest story of the week. Distraught woman consults psychic on her lost duck. Aww. So far, psychic animal communicator Kathy can only say that the pet duck is lost. But having a nice time in a local pond, apparently, with someone named Bill. Oh dear. and I'm presuming that the bill means William, not the duck's beak. Well, that's everything for this week. Oh, my goodness, lots of silliness that I always enjoy. And before I go, I want to share with you that we have many lake monsters in Canadian folklore. I grew up looking for the Ogopogo in Lake Okanagan, and near Banff, close to where we live, we have the Lake Minnewanka merman, who no longer wreaks havoc on the lake since he was caught in 1915 and is now on display in a case at the Banff Trading Post. Australian Skepticon speaker Ben Radford could list a whole lot more, as he did for our 2023 Week in Reason conference. And since my husband and I will be traveling to Iceland in a few days, I was wondering if that country had any lake monsters. And with a quick Google search, found out that there is a lake monster called the Lagerfloat worm. And it was first sighted in 1345 and lives in a lake of its namesake. The Lagerfloat is a glacial-fed freshwater below sea level lake that supposedly is home to the monster that is purported to be 12 meters or 40 feet long and has many humps, just like the Ogopogo or the Loch Ness Monster. Unfortunately, on our travels, we're not going to be close to this lake, but I will keep an eye out for other mysterious things and report back. Apparently, elves are quite prevalent. Until next time, this is Adrienne Hill.
Chris, what do you call two orthopedists reading an electrocardiogram?
I don't know, Jonathan.
A double-blind study. This is the type of highbrow medical humor you can expect from The Body of Evidence, the best podcast you're not listening to.
But we don't hold it against you.
We answer the burning medical questions of the day
by seeing what the data actually says.
Because wild, unjustified pseudoscience is for the other guys.
Is it safe to take Tylenol when you're pregnant? Should we worry about microplastics harming us? Are there any dietary supplements that will help you perform better? Are the doggos all very good boys?
They are indeed very good boys.
The science on this is clear and unambiguous.
If you're getting your health advice from the Joe Rogan Experience, it may be time to come back to Earth and listen to The Body of Evidence.
Reality can be nice too. Come join us on this planet.
We also talk to experts, and there's a teddy bear.
There is. We also talk about dogs a lot.
They're better than humans.
The Body of Evidence.
Wherever you get your podcasts and at bodyofevidence.ca.
Now it's time once again to dip our toes back into the ocean, the expanse of digital archives found at Trove at trove.nla.gov.au. Of course, Australia's digitised newspapers going back decades into centuries. And with the Olympic Games on at the moment, I thought it might be interesting to visit the topic of superstition in sport. Now, sporting people probably, as long as sport has been around, have indulged in various superstition, like the football players who might do a certain ritual before the game or wear a lucky piece of clothing. I think an Australian cricket player was famous for wearing a red handkerchief at one stage. And to a certain extent, we can understand this behaviour. It can be comforting. And while it's quite possible that the players in question really don't think that wearing a certain colour handkerchief or something can really change the outcome of a game, well, if it gives them more confidence or makes them feel better, then yeah, I think we can understand that. Nevertheless, let's go back into the past to see how superstition in sport was reported all those years ago. And we find ourselves in the year 1932, on the 21st of December, as reported in the pages of the Advertiser from Adelaide, South Australia. rogues and vagabonds. How law regards teacup readers, superstition in sport. The seeds of superstition find root in unsuspected places. Phlegmatic individuals, apparently most unimaginative and matter-of-fact in most things, suddenly exhibit signs of greatest trepidation when they discover they have walked under a ladder or lighted 3 cigarettes with 1 match. A prominent official in South Australian cricket spent many minutes yesterday morning enticing a very youthful black kitten onto the Adelaide Oval so that he might lift it over the fence onto the playing arena. Those who know that official would not regard him as being superstitious, yet he probably attributes South Australia's defeat to the fact that the kitten declined to stay on the oval. It squeezed itself between the pickets and scurried off. In cricket, superstitions and credulity are apparent in many forms of sport. When Cummins, the New South Wales player, split his bat at the Oval on Monday, many superstitious spectators said to their neighbours, "It's bad luck to change your bat. He will get out now." There were many "I told you so's" and more devout believers in this superstition when Cummins returned to the wicket with his new bat and was out first ball to Wall. And I imagine Wall was the bowler. Boratora, the mercurial Frenchman whose bounding energy made him one of the world's greatest tennis players, was superstitious. When things were not going quite as they should for him during a match, he would take off the beret he habitually wore, toss it aside, don another, and leap into the fight with renewed vigour. Staid, hard-headed businessmen have been known to take a keen interest in the prophecies of seers, who claim to have the power of reading messages conveyed by the tea leaves left at the bottom of teacups. In some cities, this inexplicable readiness to indulge in this inheritance of savagery has been commercialized by proprietors of cafes and restaurants who employ fortune-tellers as, quote, added attractions, end quote. Every state has legislation prohibiting this, but it has not been enforced by all. The announcement was made this week that teacup reading in public cafes in Brisbane must cease. Morons and half-wits. Only the very simple would take any notice of such childish devices, remarked Crown Solicitor Mr. A.J. Hannon yesterday. The idea, he said, that Providence is ready to predict fate every time tea is poured into a cup is too absurd for words. There is provision in South Australia to cope with teacup reading, or for that matter, any form of fortune-telling, should it become the rage in Adelaide. Section 67 of the Police Act 1916, in the following cold, dispassionate words, provides the power. Any person shall be deemed a rogue and vagabond, and shall be liable for imprisonment for a term not exceeding 6 months, who pretends to tell fortune, or uses by any means or device, by palmistry or otherwise, to deceive and impose upon any of His Majesty's subjects. Not only does this power exist, it has been enforced on many occasions. In one case, a few years ago, the fortune-teller read to her client, unfortunately for the seer, the client was a policewoman, a long and shrewdly prepared statement calculated to circumvent Section 67 of the Police Act, in which the fortune-teller impressed upon her client that she did not claim to possess powers of foreseeing the future, and that anything she might say was only in her effort to entertain her client, for it was claimed she was not a fortune-teller, but an entertainer. Despite this elaborate precaution, the fortune-teller was convicted of an offence against the section, the Chief Justice pointing out that it was immaterial whether the person practised upon the deceived or not. Now I wonder if that law is still on the books. Now it seems to me that story did mention sport somewhat, but it was a bit more general. Now let's go to the year 1935 on the 23rd of November in the Daily Telegrath from Sydney, Australia. And this is a story by Jim Mathers. Sport and superstition. There is a primitive tendency in all of us to feel awe for something we do not quite understand. It is called superstition. In sport, this mental condition may be reflected in some peculiar mannerism, or as that of the cricketer who never fails to touch the peak of his cap before the bowler delivers the ball. Or it may be expressed in the love of a mascot, such as the rabbit's paw, snugly tucked away in a boxer's bag. Sports superstition may have a value. It provides a mental setting for a definite form of activity which ultimately becomes a help to victory. In short, the superstition frightens off the hoodoo that threatens to engulf the performer. It sets him at ease. He can play, fight, kick, wrestle with the supreme confidence that his mascot is with him. Les Darcy, and he was a boxer. Every night he fought at the stadium, he walked into the little office with cap and sweater on and yarned with Jim Taylor for a few minutes. On other fight nights, he merely walked to the office window, procured his ticket, and passed on to the ringside. The night he fought Harold Hardwick on February 18, 1916, he entered the small office after he had knocked Hardwick out in the 7th round. He was holding his 2 front teeth by the roots, which Hardwick had knocked out with a smashing right hand to the mouth. Goodness. Hardwick said he would like to have them. Darcy replied, "I'll consult the dentist first. If he can put them back, I'd be better satisfied." The dentist put them back. Darcy died just 12 months later in Memphis, USA. One of his teeth had turned septic. Hundreds of explanations have been given as to the course of Darcy's lamented death, and hundreds of people still claim they have one of Darcy's teeth gold-mounted, but the story just told is the plain truth. The psychological explanation of Darcy's superstition, as in the case of all others, is that on some particular occasion he walked into the small office for a yarn, subsequently won his fight, and by the process of auto-suggestion, he always walked into the office every time he fought. The link having been established between the office yarn and the fight, it became an integral part of the action. Jack Haynes would not enter the ring unless he first shook hands with Arthur in the passageway. Joe Gontley, I think that's pronounced, lost a fight at the stadium because some mischievous enthusiast had souvenired his green trunks. Mark Hauff, the American Negro, reckons that a rabbit's paw is worth more to him than a whole poultry farm. Bearing in mind the terms used here come from 1935. Ambrose Palmer will not travel without a certain seed the size of a kidney in his bag. Bill Henneberry will never allow Brother Fred to fight until he has examined his gloves for fear of the presence of a pin. Some miscreant frightened the life out of Bill one night by putting a pin in the gloves. Bill Henneberry does not agree that this is superstition. Claude Varner carried a battered bag with him around the world. It was patched up with sticking plaster. Claude also bathed his face with boiled boots. This was not a superstition so much as an evil-smelling tonic for the skin. Jack Dunleavy used to search New York for a blind man prior to every fight. Major Taylor, the cyclist, would not race unless he had number 13. The former New Zealand High Commissioner, Sir Thomas Wilfred, always backed number 13 in his racebook. Paul Mead, English cricketer, would never face the bowler unless he had dipped his lid to the umpire fielding at square leg. 10 years ago, when the Canadian soccer team was in Australia, the goalkeeper always walked onto the field with a horseshoe, which he threw into the net before the commencement of play. On one occasion, an opponent crashed into the net and planted his face on the spikes that were sticking up from the horseshoe. That was superstition with a vengeance. And I wonder how many of those reports were actually true. And finally, we'll jump ahead many decades to the year 1995 from the Canberra Times, as published on the 13th of October. Is it just luck or an outside influence? Superstition plays a major part in some players' preparation for those big games, as David Kirkpatrick discovered. In films such as Bull Durham, the wayward pitcher, played by actor Tim Robbins, learns to breathe through his eyelids, wears a suspender belt, and learns to rechannel his sexual energy to help get his aim right. Another player in the team believes in voodoo and blesses his bat with a chicken's foot, while the only confirmed Christian in the team leads prayer sessions before batting practice. In reality, superstitions and playing rituals are far more mundane, with the unshaven look, lucky socks and underpants some of the favourite foibles of the sporting elite. And while this may say more about a competitor's personal hygiene rather than anything else, there can be no doubting that if it feels lucky, it must be. Cricket is a very superstitious game. Just ask the War Twins. And the War Twins were famous brothers playing cricket in Australia around that time. Apart from having a special knack of running each other out while they were batting, the two brothers both have routines that they follow. Steve apparently has a lucky red handkerchief. It was Steve Waugh who had the lucky red handkerchief, I remember now. While Mark notches each century he scores on his thigh pad. Former West Australian batsman, now ACT coaching director, Mike Valenta, had a spooky experience while fielding at the WACA ground last year. One of the members had been cremated, and his dying wish was to have his ashes spread on the hallowed turf. Normally, the wind would have spread his ashes to the four corners of the ground, but Valletta found himself fielding on top of them in his position at third slip. "It's just lucky I didn't have to dive to take a catch," he said. Numerology also plays a big part in cricket, with 87 considered to be Australia's unlucky number and 111 for England. In the Australian Football League, high-profile Sydney Swans full forward Tony Plugger Lockett always takes his jumper last when they are handed out before the game and has formed a close attachment to one particular pair of underpants. Lockett's former St Kilda teammate Stuart Lowy has a little routine that he follows religiously before taking a shot at goal. He always pulls his socks up and makes a mark on the ground from where he intends kicking the ball. Australian basketball superstar Andrew Gaze had a spooky rather than superstitious experience while playing for Apollon Patras in the Greek League. Comments attributed to him in a Melbourne newspaper about game fixing in Greece came back to haunt him while he was still playing there. He was besieged by players, journalists and angry fans who demanded an explanation. Unable to balance fact from fiction, Gaze soon began to suspect that he was being set up for a hit and slept with a butcher's knife under his pillow. Canberra Cannons centre Ray Borner noted that a number of basketball players like to take the last shot in the warm-up before a game. "I don't know why that is," Borner said. "I guess before the start of a game, the last thing they like to see is the ball going through the net." So there we are. Yes, superstition in sport, strange behaviour. Some of it we can we can understand. Maybe you have a superstition too, or a ritual. I think many people do. And by and large, I'm sure it's mostly harmless. I wonder, while watching the Olympic Games on at the moment, I wonder if we'll see any superstitions or rituals by players here or there. But you too might be able to discover some interesting superstitions or rituals when it comes to the sporting field or not by visiting the pages at Trove at trove.nla.gov.au, because when you go there, you never know what you might find. Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast this week, and thank you to those wonderful people who contribute with Patreon or PayPal. And thank you to those people who have recently decided to end their subscription, because I know that not everybody can always contribute all the time. I just want you to know that I appreciate the fact very much that you did subscribe for a while, and I hope you continue to enjoy the show. And everybody who enjoys the show does thank you, whether you're a current subscriber or a past subscriber, because it's because of people like you, everybody else gets to enjoy the show. Coming up on next week's show, an investigation I recently did about power devices, power bands. These are the things that you would wear on your wrist or around your neck or about your person. And the claim was it would somehow improve you, maybe your prowess on the sporting field, speaking about the Olympics lately. Broken Breakthroughs is the name of the report, and this was in a very recent issue of the Skeptic magazine, the journal from Australian Skeptics. Also on next week's show, more information about the upcoming Skepticon here in Sydney, Australia, the Australian Skeptics National Convention, with our special international guest, among others, the one and only Ben Radford. But for this week, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Sydney, Australia.
You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Please visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for episodes and show notes with links going back to 2008. You can follow the Skeptic Zone on Facebook, X, TikTok and YouTube by clicking the links at our homepage, together with links to support the show financially via Patreon or PayPal. The Skeptic Zone is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed by our guests are not necessarily those of the Skeptic Zone podcast or any other skeptical organisation. Well, we're here at Skeptics at the Pub at a fairly epic evening, because I haven't been here for a while, and let me tell you, it is happening. People doing all sorts of things that is probably best presented in an audio podcast. But right now, it's over to Richard, who's all three of us. Like, who we got in this so-called dice game? I've read the novel Dice Man, and I know what you're up to, Saunders.
I've been dumbled. We have all sorts of people here with skin in the game. We have Lara. Hello, Lara.
Hello, Richard. Hello, Maynard.
Hello. Now, what is the object of this game? This is this thing you play at the end. It's like, are cats involved?
Yes. Right. Cats are involved. I'll leave that to your imagination. This is where we roll a die. This week it's a D10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10. And the listeners at home, or you here right now, Maynard, you can use your predicting power to predict what numbers are going to come up. In fact, we're going to roll it 1, 2, 3, 4 times, and we'll see if your psychic powers are on par tonight.
Right. Well, I'll go first. I'll have a 9, a 7, a 4, a 2.
That's it.
All right, there we go. And you, Lara?
I'm going to go with 2, 10. Is it 10 or 0? 10?
10.
And 8.
All right, let me see. Me, I'll go for 3, 5, 6 and 2.
Okay, so Captain Mathematics, what are the odds of any one of us getting all 4 of them?
Listeners can work that out and send it to me on the back of an envelope. Well, it would be 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. So we're looking at
10,000.
10,000. Thank you, Lara.
Good on you.
It's a number, that's not odds.
Wow.
It's 1 in 10,000.
Okay.
Well, okay, let's go. Let's see what the first number is. Is that a 6?
It's a 6.
6 at home. Get playing. No cheating at home.
Yeah, 6.
No.
See? 3 times 2, 6.
Lara's trying to come up with some creative ideas.
It's called numerology.
All right, Lara, roll
Look it up.
again. Here we go.
Okay. 7.
Maynard.
Hey, I got it. Yay, and I'm terrible at geometry or whatever it's called. Yeah. Maths.
Next.
And here we go. 2.
No one got it that roll. No. Last roll.
Last roll, fourth roll.
1.
No.
All right, so out of all those, Maynard got the only one.
But the numbers again, for those playing at home, was 6, 7, 2, and 1, with no supplementary because there's no money. What do you think we are, made of it?
You think we should have a supplementary?
Okay, we'll do a supplementary.
One more time. I'm going to predict 10.
I'll take an 8.
8.
3.
3 for Lara.
Here we go.
10.
Richard.
Me.
There we go. So the odds are not with us tonight, but the meal was good.
Thank you.
Yes. I think I'll get back to my ginger beer here. It's a nice ginger beer, isn't it?
Excellent, yes.